We are live now.
ஓகேம்மா, இன்னும் 1 minute இருக்கு. Good morning, everybody. Namaskaram. On behalf of SrIrAmAnujam Mission of SrIrAm Srimad Andavan Ashramam, New Jersey Ashramam, and SriVari Sri Balaji Temple, we cordially invite all our devotees and Abhimanis and all our friends for this intergalactic clock series. This is a 2-part series which we are going to be presented. Our presenter will be presented by our own rAmAnujam of our ashramam. இதில் என்ன அப்படின்னாக்க 1994 ராமானுஜா மிஷன் ஆரம்பிச்சதுலேருந்து I'm almost closely involved, and I know most of the activities and presentation we did during this growth of all these years. Maybe I mistook it, maybe somebody presented it, but to my knowledge, this is the first time I realized that we are leaping into the new type of series. நிறைய உபன்யாசம் காலட்சேபம் நிறைய பேர் பண்ணியிருக்கா. நிறைய ஆடியன்ஸ் ஹஸ் விட்னஸ் தட். பெரிய பெரிய யுவா இந்தியாவிலேருந்து எல்லாம் பண்ணியிருக்கா. நம்ம ஸ்ரீகாரியம்லேருந்து நம்ம ஆண்டவன்லேருந்து எல்லாருமே பண்ணியிருக்கா. பட் திஸ் இஸ் ரியலி ஐ எம் பர்சனலி வெரி வெரி ஹாப்பி. எனக்கு இந்த சப்ஜெக்ட் பற்றி ரொம்ப தெரியாது. பட் ஒன்று மாத்திரம் எனக்கு நல்லா தெரியும். இதை ப்ரெசன்ட் பண்ணுற ஸ்ரீராம் நம்ம பையன். நம்ம ஆத்துலேருந்து ஒருத்தர் வந்து நமக்கு ப்ரெசன்ட் பண்ணுறா அப்படிங்கிற போது I see the growth at which we are growing so fast. This gives an opportunity to anybody and everybody who is interested in sharing their knowledge. சாதாரணமாக சொல்லுவாங்க, நாலேஜை வச்சுக்கிறதுல பிரயோஜனமே கிடையாது. ஒரு தரித்திரனுக்கு எவ்வளோ பணம் இருந்தாலும் அது உபயோகத்தில் இல்லை, எவ்வளோ செல்வம் இருந்தாலும் அது யூஸ் கிடையாது. பட் நமக்கு இருக்கிற நாலேஜை அது ஷேர் பண்ணி மீதி பேர் could understand what is happening. It's a great thing. So without taking much of time, I invite SrIrAm to take over. இது இன்ட்ராக்ஷன் இது அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருக்கா. That's what I'm going to understand. So if anybody have any questions or a doubt, I think they will give an opportunity to speak to the speaker, the presenting body, to ask for any questions or anything. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a very successful session for today and tomorrow. And if it's successful, again, I'm going to request anybody who has a knowledge on anything, நம்ம டெம்பிளோட growth-ஓ ஆசிரமத்தோட growth-ஓ to sharing the knowledge. Please present it, feel free to speak to one of the administrators of the temple. They'll be very happy to arrange for this type of presentation. Thank you very much. Good luck, SrIrAm. Thank you.
श्रीमान वेंकटनाथार्य कवितार्की केसरी वेदांताचार्य वर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः श्रीमते रामानुजाय नमः श्री लक्ष्मी हयग्रीव परब्रह्मणे नमः श्री अंबुजवल्ली नायकासमेत श्री भूराव परब्रह्मणे नमः दिशन्तु मे देव सदा तदीयाः दयातरङ्गा नृचरा कटाक्षाः श्रोत्रे स्मृतं क्षन्तिं सहस्रतीं संशत कामधेनु. With my respects to all the Bhagavatas, I would like to present today, our understanding of this universe and the time aspect of the universe. It's a vast subject, but still, Adiyan is going to be humble about presenting this to everyone. As most of you know, in the recent past, Sir Isaac Newton has been one of our great scientists that discovered the aspects of gravity. He sat under the story goes that he sat under a tree and he was contemplating the world around him. He saw an apple fall. It was attributed to gravity. He then discovered the fact that gravity is what is moving the entire universe, Earth, all the planets and everything. The one aspect of Newton that many may not know is he was a deeply religious person. He was a very spiritual person that has authored many books on philosophy. He was contemplating on what is really holding everything together. He said he understood gravity, but he never could understand what's generating the gravity that's holding the planets together. He really wanted to find out that aspect of it. He was extremely interested. He made some statements, but given that when you go religious and you go stuff, people don't like it as much. So he had to shelve most of it. Now, if we dial back into our rishis, the rishis of Bharata, they were similarly sitting under a tree. They have done tapas for many years. They contemplated on everything around them, right? Everything around them. And through their Tapo Shakti and Vedas, they've been able to understand the basic elements. They were able to understand the basic elements that made them live: air, water, light source, the earth, the makeup of the earth. And then they moved on and on. They went beyond this earth and they tried to find where did it all start, right? It all started. They went out to the galaxies. They looked at the stars around them. They looked at the galaxies around them. Every moving object they tried to understand. And of course, because of the knowledge of the Vedas, they were able to comprehend much more beyond what Sir Isaac Newton was able to. That's a key difference that we need to understand. Today, our focus is going to be about learning about time, how we measure it. For many, you may be reminded of your high school days in terms of learning about the basics of the sun, the moon, and how they move in the larger cosmos. This part of our culture, our culture actually is Vedanga. Vedanga is a limb of the Vedas. There are 6 of them, and one of them happens to be Jyotisha. Jyotisha is actually a short form for Jyoti Shastra. Jyoti, as most of you would know, represents light. So it is the study of light and its importance in not only defining time, it also helps in determining time. So the 2 aspects of light is it helps you define where you are, and it also helps you define and determine, in terms of the current day and in relation to everything else that we have. So that's the part of the Vedas. Vedanga of the six. Most people think Vedanga, Jyotisha Shastra, is related to just predictive astrology. Uh, Actually, it has two aspects to it. It has the astronomical aspect to it and the astrological aspect to it. Astrology is more of an application of what you learn from the sciences of the astronomy part of it. So today we're going to focus mostly on how that part helps us with everything that we do and where we are with respect to this universe. As everyone knows, right, the one thing that's consistent, uh, for everything in this earth, on this earth and beyond, is light source. Water is not there everywhere. There can be air, there may not be air, but light, reaches Mars, reaches Saturn, reaches Earth. It's one source that's extremely consistent, and it changes by the day. It changes in the morning, there's a change in the afternoon, there's a change in the evening, and days become weeks. Days become weeks, weeks become month, and months go on to years. And it's a primary source that sustains life. Life begins and is sustained primarily by light. And our scriptures has completely defined light as being the primary transformation source of matter. Matter is transformed primarily by the energy of light. Sharirika Mimamsa, truly, Sri Bhashyam, Sri Bhashyakara, expounds a lot about how an inanimate object like a rice, annam, becomes a human body, how it enters a human body, and a human body is made from an inanimate object. So everything has a life. It can transform, and it's all possible just because of the energy source called light. Now, in relationship to light, there are two main things that we need to understand. One is, there are two concepts or words that many of you may have heard. One is kalpa, and the other is pralaya. These two are extremely important because our rishis try to understand the beginning of time, the beginning of this creation, the beginning of everything, right? And at that time, what they really found through the Vedas again is pralaya and kalpa. And kalpa is when creation starts. Uh, Understanding how Sriman Narayana, makes this creation happen through Brahma. He appoints Brahma to start the creation. That's when the time starts. The clock starts right after the creation starts. And now he doesn't make a distinction between the dissolution of it. When there's a day, there's always night. So it's all equal. So as long as there is a kalpa for billions and billions of years, a kalpa is not a short period of time. It's practically billions of years. And pralaya is also pretty equal. People think pralaya is something small. Not really. It's equal. As much as nighttime is equal to a daytime, it can span for billions of years also. Now, when Sriman Narayana takes sankalpa, it's the same kalpa. His divine will, creates things. He makes things happen through his sankalpa. When he does it, everything is created. The world, the cosmos around it is created. His imagination, kalpa usually is like the imagination. His divine imagination or the wish is what brings everything into life. And by saying life, even inanimate things that we think are inanimate, like the planets, the sun, the moon, our own bodies, everything takes life just because of this divine will of Sriman Narayana. And that's when the time starts. And based on where you are, it's the times are different. Uh, Srimad Vedanta Mahadesikan in his Shodashaka Stotram says Jagat Chakram, Kala Chakram cha Shashvatam, meaning this creation, Jagat Chakram, is as prevalent, and it's got equal life as much as Kala or the time has. I mean, they both go hand in hand. There's really no end, no beginning. We do not know. It's so vast, and so much goes back so much in time that we do not know when it began or when we are just going in cycles. It's cyclical. There's no start, there's no beginning. Only thing we know is the point in time in which the creation started, based on the sankalpa of Srimad Narayana. Now, if we are going to be able to understand where we are, let's for a moment come back to the the landscape of Earth, ground ourselves in Earth, and how we move, with respect to all the other planets. Most of people that have studied astronomy or are current astronomers tell us that there are billions, literally billions of galaxies, billions of stars. They're all moving at an extremely rapid rate in the Milky Way. The Earth, as such, we ourselves are rotating on our own axis at 1,000 miles per hour. Okay, and at the time that we are rotating, we are also revolving around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. And the whole planetary system, along with the sun, the moon, and all of the planets around it, we are all zipping across the Milky Way at 480,000 miles an hour. Imagine the the madness. Imagine the speed at which each one of us is traveling. We don't even realize it. We don't even realize the fact that we are moving at such rapid pace, but we're all going at, as if there's no tomorrow. We don't even know where we're going. We're just going around in circles. The space is so huge, so big, that we don't even know how fast, even though we are traveling this fast, we don't even know where we are going. But we're all held together by something. There's a force that holds us all together, all the planets and all the solar systems and the galaxies around us, the relative motions, everything seems to be pretty, constant. Uh, Swami Ramanuja actually defines something called Aadhar Shakti in his Nitya Grantha. So Aadhar Shakti is a ritual actually that we do every day to thank this very gravitational pull that keeps us all functioning. Aadhar Shakti is supposed to set to emanate from Sri Vaikuntham. It keeps everything in order in terms of the gravitational pull, not only from the top but the bottom, the sides. There's going to be all kinds of motions that happen, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's also a part which talks about Dhruva. Many may have also heard about Dhruva. Dhruva is this little boy that made Vasudeva appear before him, and he touches with his conch, right, the shankam on his cheek, and he gains knowledge. And then Dhruva is somebody that's seen Bhagavan, but then that Bhagavan that appears before him, Dhruva becomes the pole star that many of you may be familiar with. Dhruva is also we call it as a constellation, but that constellation plays an important role. It acts as a substation that holds the whole of the universe as much as we can see together. It's supposed to be this substation, like when you think about electricity and how it's generated and how the substations supply power. Dhruva is one such. It's supposed to hold us all together. And Aadhar Shakti is this divine force that we pray to, in addition to the Surya and so much more that we see. So it's called Sushumara in Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's quite a bit of explanation on that. People can look it up. But having said all this, having given an introduction of how fast we are moving, where we are, I can only feel completely humble. I got to tell you that I'm just a learner. I'm just trying to present something in front of everybody. There are probably people that know more than me. I'd be glad to take any suggestions, corrections. But if you see anything that's nice, it's all due to my acharyas. Now, I think we want to kind of delve into the creation of Purushottama with prayers to him. Let's look a little deeper. Most of us, when we have done any small event like a homam or a tarpanam in your houses, or anything that you do, we do something called a sankalpam also. Just like Srimad Narayana, the sankalpam, we also do sankalpam. That sankalpam actually has when you put everything into perspective of this universe, it gives you a point in time. It tells you where we started. Normally, I think if you go back and look, we say Shweta Varaha Kalpam. Shweta Varaha Kalpam truly is the creation or the start of the earth. The earth became habitable because Srimad Narayana took the Varaha avataram. Apparently, contrary to many other ways that it described, the orbital path of Earth may have moved out, in being not receiving as much of sunlight, being wobbly, all kinds of stuff. So the Earth literally had to be placed in its right positioning, and that point in time when the Earth was put into orbit made habitable. The perfect weathers that we have, the climatic conditions that we have, is exactly what we are thankful for. Shvetavaraha Kalpam, we talk about the Manu that's ruling us. We talk about the day that we are doing the ritual on, which is every day has a planet in terms of playing. You're tacitly getting their approval. You're getting the approval of the planets, the nakshatra that's there on the particular day, the tithi. So you're literally trying to pay your obeisance or a small prayer to every celestial body around you, because all of them are working for Sriman Narayana. They all are creations of Sriman Narayana, and we are doing our small part in recognizing their presence, and in turn humbling ourselves in saying, oh, I'm here trying to do something so small when there's such a large world out there. That is the power of your sankalpam. The sankalpam that we do has such a big bearing, because you're bringing yourself in the context of everything that's there around you. When you say yuktayam, for every nakshatra yuktayam, you're doing it under the aegis of this particular nakshatram. You're really calling on those planetary bodies to kind of bless us, to kind of go through with whatever we have taken to accomplish. And that's the power of it. Now, I want to kind of bring focus to this diagram that we have here. It's something that shows us where we are with respect to the universe. It's mostly focusing on the Earth. The few things I want to kind of lay out. I've, we have it as a circle. As most of you may know, we have an elliptical path. We are ever so small elliptical, truly speaking, but nevertheless, we are elliptical when our movements are concerned. Of course, the sun actually, the Earth actually moves closer to the sun during the winter. As you may all know, we take a path, in an elliptical fashion like that. In the summer months, we are farther away from the sun, even though it's summer, we get more sunlight. But during this winter, we are closer to it. Now, so when the rishis, stood around, in those days, I guess they had less light pollution, so they were able to see far better than what we do today. When we go out and look today, there are things that are twinkling, twinkle, twinkle, little star. The stars that we see are probably planes that are trying to land. Most of the times, they just move too fast, or they're standing there. We think they're stars, but they're not. the rishis had the advantage of looking at the stars and figuring out the spacescape. They really wanted to kind of draw out a spacescape of what what is around them. And when they looked at it, they decided to kind of slice this entire 360-degree view that we have into 12 slices. Those 12 slices, let me start with Mesha. So Mesha, if you see here, they gave names to the slice. Every slice has a name associated to it. This slice of Mesha, this is the arc with which we move. Of course, I'm going to show you how the Earth moves in this arc, but this is the slice which defines uh, our motion around the sun, but that's what defines the month for us. So Mesha is what it is. But if you look out, the Mesha, the definition of the Mesha, the spacescape, came about because of the planets that it holds. Not the planets, sorry, the stars that it holds. So if you look at this the slide of course is going to expand, and it's going to be pretty huge in terms of what it encompasses. Uh, a single slice was further segmented, of the 12 slices, each slice was further segmented into 9 segments. And 9 segments were again the total number of nakshatras, or the stars that we usually call, or 27. They identified 27 stars that go around, or when you look around, there are 27 of them. And these 27 nakshatras is what they segmented with each of these slices. And each slice that you may see is called a Rashi. It's called a Rashi for a reason. The word Rashi means plenty. There's a bunch of them. There are many stars, that are there in it. So it's a constellation. It's a constellation, and this is the Aries. It kind of corresponds to Aries, and it's the prominent stars are what's what you see here. There are millions of stars within them, but the most prominent ones are the ones that you see out here. So now Mesha, if you look at Mesha itself as a slice is allocated 3 nakshatras, and the 3 nakshatras are nakshatra that we call is not just one. I want to call out that part. Each nakshatra actually can comprise of a cluster. In this case, I'll point out the cluster of stars that each of the nakshatras have. In this case, we start in the Mesha, the Masam, and also the Rashi. They're both interchangeable. They start with Ashwini. Ashwini has 4 padas. I mentioned 9 padas, of which each nakshatra gets 4 padas each. And we'll talk about how it's divided up. Since we are starting right here in the first, Ashwini gets 4 padas. It comprises of 3 stars. Ashwinis are the Ashwini Kumaras, where they had Ashwa, the horse headed. They were the sons of the sun, the Surya. So every single nakshatra that we see here, like Ashwini, Bharani, for example, is the bearer. It takes a lot of weight. Kritikas or the Krit is the ones that cuts, with fire. If you've heard about Shanmuka was nursed by 6 Kritikas. These were the ones that took avataram to nurse Shanmuka, hence the name Kritika, hence the Kartikeya. So each nakshatra that we see here has a profound meaning. They knew exactly what it was in terms of what it did. Rohini, for example, is considered the favorite of the moon that goes around, amongst its wife. One thing I want to kind of pause a little, for a moment and recognize the fact that in our culture, all stars are feminine. A star is always feminine. And Rohini happens to be a star, and then it has Kritika had 6, right? So Kritika has 6, corresponding to the 6-headed Shanmuka that she nursed. Rohini has 5, for example. Mrigashira, for the name Mrigashira itself means Mriga. Mriga is an animal. It has the head of the animal, hence Mrigashira. Ardra was supposed to be the one that was kind of brings life, it moistens something to give enough life. And I think I always think of that as being a very powerful thing, where Swami Ramanuja, he did not discover a new sampradayam. He moistened it. He brought forth the Sharanagati sampradayam by moistening it. And that goes very well with his name. It's 1 star. It's just got 1 star, but that's a real star. Punarvasu is another famous one. Punaha Vasuhu, Punarvasu. Since it's we personify a lot of these stars too. In our culture, nothing is inanimate. Nothing has, everything has a purpose in life. It has its own life. Punarvasu is a personification of helping find or regain what was lost. It's Adipati, or Aditi actually is the the prominent person behind Punarvasu. Hence, Rama was also born under the Punarvasu. We can talk more about it a little bit. Pushya again is a beautiful one with 3 stars. Ashlesha or Ashraya is the name of that star, which has 6. Makha again is 6 stars. These, the Purva Falguni and the Uttara Falguni, those, if you look at it, they have 2. So that's the reason why they seem complementary to each other. Falguni is a reddish in color apparently, and they have 2 in the front, 2 in the 2 later. They form a pair. Hence it's Uttara and Purva Falguni. Hasta, right? Hasta is 5, and then we have 5 fingers, and hence the name Hasta, right there. Chitra again has 1 star, but apparently when you look at it with a good telescope and stuff, they say the Chitra is the most beautiful star. Even though there's 1 star, it's so picturesque around it. So the next one is Swati. Of course, Vishaka is Vishaka. There's no branching. It's supposed to be in a line, in a straight line. Vishaka. Anuradha is what follows Jyeshta. Unfortunately, Anuradha is just a name that says Anuradha, which the most glorious one was supposed to be Jyeshta. Among the 27, these nakshatras truly are the 27 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. And Jyeshta happens to be the first one, and that's why I'm trying to mention that here. So they do, when the creation started, they are the 27 daughters of Daksha Prajapati, and Jyeshta was the first one. And then comes Mula. When you look at Mula as the name suggests, even though there are 11 out there, it's supposed to be the root for millions of other stars. Almost there's innumerable number of branches that start from the Mula nakshatra, hence the name Mula. There's the Purva Ashada and the Uttara Ashada, which have 2 each. Uttara Ashada is unconquerable or unconquered yet. Is the meaning behind the 2 of the Uttara Ashada and the Purva Ashada. Shravana nakshatra, of course, we know it's Balaji's nakshatram, it's Venkateshwara. He was born at the ages of Shravana nakshatra. The name Dhanishta comes from the formation of how it looks as a diamond. It apparently looks like a diamond, and diamond is riches. So Dhanishta. Satabisha, for example, has hundreds of stars. It literally, you can't really make out, and there's hundreds. So the name Satabisha, it so suggests that there are 100. Then there's Purva Bhadra. Purva Proshtapada is the actual name for it. Proshtapada is the cluster of the 2 stars that make up these 2. Look like a cow's hoof, apparently. The feet of the cow, right? The formation of those make up what Purva Proshtapada and Uttara Proshtapada. Last comes Revati, last but not the least, right? Sri Swami Ranganatha Swami of Srirangam took avataram under Revati. And the Revati, if you notice, has 32 stars in it, just not one. And hence, Swami Desikan, it is said that he composed his Padaka Sahasram with 32 Paddatis. Also, one of the reasons was that Revati has 32 stars, and each Paddati was a star for him. And that's how profound in meaning each of these nakshatras have. They've been thought through. They have an absolute meaning to them. It's just not, oh, we found something and just hence the name, right? It brings so much meaning into how the world was created. And that was just a quick walkthrough on how we see the stars and how they are, how we have the slices and how nicely the nakshatras fall into each of these slices. Now let's go and look at the sun. Is the hero. Now we need to kind of talk about sun now with respect to how we see his effect on us. All of these planets or celestial bodies, for example, or elements for that matter, comprise of what we know as the 33 devatas. So that we always hear about 330 million devatas, crores of devatas, whatever. But 33 are the major classifications. There are 12 adityas, there are 8 ashtavasus. The ashtavasus are the ones that form the elements. Adityas, of course, are the ones that are light sources, different types of light sources. Ashtavasus are the elements. And then the 11 Rudras, they are the forces behind making all these other two move. They bring about the movement. They're the forces. And of course, the last two, there are various texts that call them Ashwini Kumaras, or it's Indra and the Prajapati. So in general, the classification of the 33 is what keeps everything in this universe moving. And sun and the moon actually happen to be one of the Ashtavasus in what as we know them. Now let's put the sun and see how it brings about an effect here to our learning on and the movements in our calendar, as most of you may know, our Hindu calendar, or our Vedic calendar, so to speak, right? It starts with spring. We have our new year in April. Around April 14th to 15th is when we have our new year. When we have our new year, usually there's people say, oh, the sun is moving into Mesha Rasi. Ravi moves into Mesha Rasi, meaning that it's moving into this, it's going to traverse and take 30 days or 31 days, 30 days to move along this arc actually. The one thing I want to kind of point out, to stop here and point out, if you look at it, every planet, every celestial body is moving in an anti-clockwise direction. They've always been told that, oh, we got to do pradakshanam, in one way, but none of these celestial bodies do it the right way, I think. But, well, that's how creation is. It's all anti-clockwise. That shouldn't be a surprise to most of you that know about it. But I just want to kind of bring that in a perspective. So when we say we are making a grand entry into a samvatsaram, which is right there, our year begins. When our year begins with Mesha, Mesha is the spring. Spring is the start of life for many, many things. The start of life for plants, for many animals, for all around, right? Of course, this is a lot tilted towards the northern hemisphere, where most of the life is, but most of people are. But still, it's going to be the exactly opposite for the southern hemisphere, and everything applies to them also. So when we say the sun is moving into Mesha Rasi, we are right there, and we come in and we make an entry. The earth makes an entry. What do you know? What you should notice is we are right here. We are in on this side of this whole picture, where we it may show Ipasi or Tula, but don't mistake it. I have a thing here pointing out where we are moving towards. The earth is right there. You're making an entry. And when somebody says, oh, the earth is moving in at 1600 hours, meaning 4 p.m. US time, you got to add the 9.5 hours to India time, okay, which would make it at 12:30 in the night, because the earth as such, as a point in reference, as a point in reference, the earth as a whole moves into that Rashi. That's the reason why if we have sunlight on that particular day, we tend to say that's the punya kalam for the US part. The US part can start doing things because we have the sunlight at 4 o'clock in the evening. We can do whatever we have to do. The punya kala applies to us, and we are supposed to do our what we are ordained to do as per our scriptures. But it's too late for India. It's 12:30. They'll do it in the morning. They'll do it in the following morning. That's the reason why most of the times we are ahead and they are behind in doing stuff, just because we as Earth move into that particular Rasi on that particular time. It's not by the time zone. Nobody knew time zones back then. We knew the Earth as such. So when we go in, this is exactly how we're going to go. Like if you go 10 days past, that's where we're going to be in Mesha Rasi. Okay, so now this concept may seem come as a surprise to many, because we are on the opposite side of where Mesha is. And when we say, you'll also see one thing that's in our writings. They'll say the sun is moving into Mesha. That's probably true, because we are looking at the world through the sun, and the sun is what shows us the world. When the sun is in front of Mesha, we are unable to see Mesha, but the sun is in Mesha. The sun is pointing in the when it's a daylight for us, it's Mesha. You can see all the rest of the constellations. You can see everything else around you, but we really cannot see Mesha even during nighttime, because we are going to be pointed on the opposite side. So during our daytime, our sun is going to block Mesha for us, and the sun is what's showing us where we are, because it's everything that was in our philosophy was not where we are. We were doing things relative to other things that were there in the celestial system, and the sun and the moon are the two things that showed us the light. And in this case, the sun happens to be what is showing us the Mesha. um, by the way, this form of movement is across the board. Any form, any Indian or anybody that's following Vedic principles have this movement, in the sense that it's not related to a Tamil calendar or a Telugu calendar or North India. Everybody has Mesha. It does go. There is a Sankramana. This is what you call the Sankramana. The Sankramana is the time at which the earth enters a particular Rashi. That's exactly what defines the Sankramana. The exact point in time where it's trying to make the movement. Now we go across, and now we're going to move. When we move, as you notice, these slices, right? These slices are Mesha and Vrishabha. Mesha and Vrishabha together form Vasanta Rutu. They defined what is called as the seasons, right? The seasons are defined by the months. Every 2 months, we have one season. It's time to visit the seasons now, right? So Vasanta Rutu for Mesha and Vrishabha, which is the spring. Now Mithuna and Karkata are both Grishma Rutu. Grishma is summer for pretty much the northern hemisphere. And when it comes down to Simha and Kanya, which are both the Rashis and the months again, it's a Varsha Rutu. Varsha Ritu meaning a lot of rain, all around the world. People think, oh, Varsha Ritu or monsoon season is just for India, or things of the sort. But if you look at it in general, the entire Earth, there's some form of water activity during these months. It's hurricane season here. It's going on even now. So it's hurricane season, and that's how these 2 months are defined. Of course, there's going to be spillage here and there, but we'll deal with it. And as we move, right, we're going to keep moving, but look at it, we are always going to be in the opposite side of where the months are. That's very important to keep. Move back a little. Yep. So we're going to keep moving, and of course I'm going to have to point this directly opposite to where we are. And as I move between the months of Mesha to Mithuna to Karkata to Simha, Kanya, uh, we are going to make an entry into Tula, where we are right now, actually. So we are in the month of Tula. We're almost 10, it's right in the center, actually. We made the entry on 17th, and right now we are right here at this juncture. Um, so one thing I want to point out, the profound nature of the movement of the sun is so important, that when we made an entry into Tula, this is how we were, right? We come in here, the earth kind of moves there, and it moves into Mesha, actually, into where it says Mesha. That's the entry into the Mesha. In the diagram, we're going to feel Tula. We're going to feel Tula. So we're going to make an entry into Tula then. On that particular day, what happens is Kaveri, for example, right? Kaveri as a river, there's a in Talakad, Talakaveri, there's a pond, actually, that gets filled with water and then spills over to a larger lake nearby, and Kaveri starts to form from that day. And it happens exactly at the time of the earth entering into Tula. And Tula Sankramanam is very, very important. It's got a great religious significance. And Snanam in Kaveri is considered extremely auspicious because of this great phenomena, where as a river, it rejuvenates itself on that particular day. Tula is that important for us. So we are right there, and I want to leave one thing behind. So I know we have the Tamil months, like in Panguni and all of those. I'm going to cover that tomorrow when we talk about the moon, because that's where those things come in. There's a significant uh, the significance behind those names, and how the moon's movements come into picture here. Um, we notice that we are at Paurnami today. If you looked at your calendars, in terms of, forget about calendars, right? Even your watches or anything, today is going to be the new moon. Full moon. It's a full moon. It's supposed to be a blue moon. It's October 31st, Halloween day, and we are right there. We are exactly at this position. And if you notice, I want to live a thought with you, and how thought, I don't know if I should say thoughtful, or the greatness of how the calculations were made or observations were made more than anything else. If you look at it, the moon's pointing towards Ashwini, and today happens to be Ashwini Nakshatram. It's Paurnami, and that's where Earth is with respect to the sun. That's exactly where we are today. On this 31st day of October, we are in Tula Masam. Okay, we are in Tula Masam. It's also called Aipasi. We are in Sharad Rutu. So Varsha Rutu and Sharad Rutu is the fall, literally, and that's why we have pictures there. Hemanta Rutu, of course, is the pre-winter. It's not fully winter, it's pre-winter. And we also had, even in India, people did call Shishira Rutu. Shishira Rutu was the deep freeze, there was a deep freeze, meaning not much grew. It's not so. So these calendars were not made for southern part of India or something related to a particular region. They were absolutely across for everybody. So from the Shishir Ritu, you make the transition to Vasanta Ritu, which is the spring. Even though it's for the northern hemisphere, that's how our divisions were made. And these months, as you notice, have one thing is it's as I mentioned earlier, it's we move in an elliptical manner. When it's winter, we take a smaller curve across. Actually, truly speaking, we are nearer the sun by 10 million miles. I think it's about 143,000 miles, 143 million miles, as opposed to 153 when we are in summer. But the laws of gravity play such a great influence that when you're nearer the sun, we move faster. The Earth moves at a faster pace. There's a speed of at which we move in different months, and it's all being factored. Our months are not the Indian months that we have, right? The Masi, Panguni, they transition from going from 31 months in summer because it takes longer, so to 30 days in the spring, to like 29 actually. If you notice, like in the months of after our months of Tai, right? Tai, which is the Makara Masam, Masi will be a very short month. It will be 29 months. It just finishes that quick. We may have a Sankramanam on the 15th of January, but we'll have a Sankramanam on the 12th of February because of this particular phenomena. Where we move faster, the months are shorter. In the winter, it's probably God's way of saying, let's get through winter. He knows that we can take it much. So we go through that pace. On an average, if you calculate all the months, the number of months, it comes to be about 30.4 months on an average, which puts us days, which puts us at 364 days for a given year. And that's how the solar months, as we call it, are important. Now, one thing to point out is the Sankramana is so important. Also, the 30 days or whatever that we move between each Rashi is considered a day, even though we have gone 30 days. In Pitrulokam, it's 1 day. It's considered 1 day, and that's the reason why many people that are eligible to do tarpanam on that particular day as a mark of respect to their pitrus. Because it's considered 1 day, and even if though it's a thought, it's just a thought, and you're pouring some water. It's considered a day to give back, to recognize them. We will definitely talk more about it tomorrow when we do talk about the moon and its impact on us all. So I want to leave with these thoughts, and I'm right now open to any questions that there may be. With what little I've covered. Thank you very much for your time today.
SrIrAm, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, this is an empirical thing. I don't know if it's really true, but I also noticed that the patras are different. The length of Shukra Patra and Krishna Paksha are different during the summer and the winter. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay, so that's just purely my observation, because
absolutely, you're absolutely right. Because depending on where we are with respect to the sun, the moon also moves in a very different way around us. We will definitely cover that tomorrow. In terms of how the moon moves around us. May not even realize the fact that it never completes one circle around us. It always goes like a wave. It forms such a great wave when it goes in, and when it comes to the phenomena that we mentioned, right? When we are closer to the sun, we travel much faster. The same thing applies to the moon also, and it's not only closer to us, it's closer to the Earth also, and it travels much faster, and there's a push and pull of gravity. So that's why it's we can never say a titi, Ashtami titi doesn't have the same amount of time which we measure in our normal form of 60 gatikas, 65 gatikas. It doesn't take that amount of time. It may be 55 some days, maybe 57 and another, and things of that sort.
That is how I noticed that. I never read that, but I just noticed that, I was looking for some Narika actually. Anyway, and the second thing is the 4, I mean, of course, you're supposed to do, Tarpanam on all the 12 months, 12 Sankramanam. The 4 important ones are very close to the 4 change of seasons, like solstices and the equinoxes, actually.
Absolutely.
And apparently, I'm sorry, okay. Apparently, they used to coincide at one point in time due to the precession of the year. And that's now the difference. Like, the winter solstice is different from our, Mesha, this thing, Sankramanam, and things. Anyway, please go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right, Swami. So when there are 2 things that you bring up a good point that I do needed to kind of mention. Thanks for bringing it up. When you look at the Samvatsaram beginning, the Makara. So the equinoxes that we had right now, the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox, so those are considered a Vishnupadi. So are the 2 ayanams. So the solstices, they are considered the Vishnupadi, and the rest of them are Shadasitis. So there are 2 Vishus. The 2 Vishus are the Mesha, and the right opposite is what we had with the Aipasi, Tula. The Tula are 2 Vishus, and you're right. So it used to be, but when we say it used to be, we need to understand that this is talking 10,000s of years. It was the same thousands of years, not like 2,000 years ago or 400 years ago. It was like, the year used to start in autumn, actually. So there's been scriptures that mention that also, and there are being many scriptures that mention about the year beginning in January also, right, during Makara. But all that has shifted as the earth has evolved. Srimad Bhagavatam actually has a lot more on it in terms of how Prithu, when Perumal took avataram as Prithu, when he made the earth more livable, things did change. And we'll cover some of that aspects tomorrow also, when we talk about the moon and how the seasons are affecting us, and how the perfect positioning of the 23.5 degrees that we are rotating at has an impact on all of this. So one thing I want to mention is Dakshinayanam and Uttarayanam, right? Those are the very 2 important transitions that we make. As we go from here, we are going into Uttarayanam. Everything that you see above right here, they're all Uttarayanam months, and these are all the Dakshinayanam months. When we're moving in the southerly direction, and this is the northerly direction is what we call it. And there's Ramayana is another ayanam that you have heard of, right? It's most common. That is also an ayanam, right? As much as Dakshinayanam and Uttarayanam is, Ramayana comes back every kalpam, and that's the reason why it has the ayanam also in it. One thing that to recognize. So there's a Ramayana with a similar storyline, maybe hundreds of thousands of shlokas in one kalpam. We are fortunate enough to have 24,000 shlokas. If you look at the storyline, it's the plot is very simple, but the meaning behind it is so profound that Bhashyakara had to go 18 times to listen to it. So that's the ayanam there is so important that it keeps coming back. Ayanam as a term means something that will come back. We go around in circle and we will see it again. So just thought I'd mention that part too.
There is a question online over the chat.
Okay.
How is Adhika Masa represented in the chart?
Okay. Yeah. So Adhika Masa is purely a concept of Chandramana Masam. Sauramana Masam, Sauramana, what we talk today is only the sun's movement and how we recognize the sun as giving us the months. I will definitely cover that tomorrow as part of the moon's movements, because we did have an Adhika Masam this year, Ashwayuja Adhika Masam, where we did nothing. We were supposed to have Diwali, but Diwali really falls on Shukla Chaturdasi of Ashwayuja Masam, which is going to be coming in, and we do that only on the Nija Ashwayuja Masam, and I'll explain to you. There's a correlation between how an Adhika Masam is determined also, and how an Adhika Masam even comes in, how we are forced to insert it. Just to give you a brief, right? The moon that travels around, revolves around the Earth, and it completes it in 29.5 days. When it does that, when you multiply by 12, you're only left with 354 days. So it doesn't get the full year. So every 2.5, 3 years, we are having to, we are losing 10 days every year. So we are having to insert one full month in between, and that's really the Adhika Masam. And we can go through it tomorrow in terms of what its impact is, and how Sankramanam also plays into impact, because the Masam that we had prior was also Ashwaja, but it did not have even a single Sankramanam. So if you don't have a Sankramanam, which is what we talked about here, that Masam is useless. It's just there. This Masam has a Sankramanam, hence we consider it as a Nija Ashwaja Masam, and it is suitable for all acharanam of all our festivals. We hope that answered the question.
I mean, Adin, yeah. Adin has one question. In the Udagashanti, there are Ashtavakyams for each of those nakshatras that you explained. Maybe what are they? What do they represent actually? Like
Ashtavakyams?
Yes, in Udagashanti for each of the 29 nakshatra, and there is also one nakshatra which is not there. I think which is not seen or something like that.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you about that part. I'll have to come back to you on what Udagashanti has. But the Abhijit is one nakshatra which is normally considered, is between Uttarashada and Shravana. So they usually insert Abhijit right there, as a nakshatram. But right now, in our present day calculations, or in determining the time, that's not being used. But Abhijit has during the day of the for the day, there's an allocation for it. There's an Abhijit time, but not as a nakshatra. It's between just like planets are degraded in its statuses, depending on how it moves and stuff. These things also go through a cycle of movement, and this is the reason why we say it's a science, right? Shastram is truly to the point that Srini Swami also made earlier. People are constantly refining this too. It's not like we've got a shastra and we just follow it blindly. There's a we can think through. It's a science we can look through. There's calculations behind it. People go through, refine it, they agree, and then come back with a change. Like you said, Abhijit was an absolute nakshatra that they used to consider, which it's not right now.
Is it fair to call them? It's like, I think the way I used to think about nakshatras as stars, but it seems to be, from some of the explanation given me, right, you provided, it seems to be like more compatible to compare nakshatras to star clusters, or even some cases nebulas. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes.
It's
a cluster of stars,
yeah.
and they themselves could be a universe in themselves.
Constellation of galaxies.
Yes, they're a galaxy in itself. Kritika is again, right?
Is it a galaxy or a nebula? I mean, I think
it's
that's
not a
those are
nebula.
two different things, right?
Yeah, it's not a nebula.
Okay.
So,
So you're saying it's a galaxy, actually.
It's a galaxy in itself. It could be, and then there are story. Not I shouldn't say stories. There are references on how there are different locums in themselves, hosting different devatas
Okay.
and life forms.
Got it. And one more thing is, you know, I think you were mentioning the nakshatras are generally feminine names, right? But we also have other nakshatras. I don't know how we think about, for example, Saptarishis are being nakshatras, right? Dhruva is a nakshatra. Are they the same as this, or they are like different form, right?
No. Yeah, one thing I want to kind of also kind of clarify there. The important nakshatras that matter to us in our daily lives are feminine. The 27 are feminine. Okay, there are millions of others that are suns, the Saptarishi mandalas and Dhruva, pole star, you know, the Surya in itself, right? Our own sun is a nakshatra, is actually a Surya, right? It's masculine. So connotation, right? In the sense that they have their roles, but these 27 that matter to us, that Daksha Prajapati has, you know, who is supposed to have given in marriage to Moon, Chandra, Soma, or they are feminine.
So finally, also, have you thought about, like, for example, Dhruva Nakshatra, right? In fact, there is a research which shows actually that I found it very interesting that the pole star we have now changed somewhere around 10,000 or 12,000 years ago, right?
Mhm.
And so that is the, I think the way I think about it is our own history or itihasas actually speak to that. When we say Bhagavan Vishnu appointed Dhruva to the pole as a pole star, there was actually a prior pole star, but Dhruva ascends to be the pole star.
Correct.
Now, so that is actually historically, astronomically validated.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So actually, in Pancharatram, right, Dhruva is a avataram of Sriman Narayana. Among the 40 avatarams, there's a 40 avatarams of Narayana that is mentioned in Shatata Samhita. In that Samhita, there is a mention of Dhruva, and that Dhruva, the pole star that we know of today in our Kalpa, is after the exactly the same thing. There used to be another pole star, and right now it's taken the form of Dhruva. And when you look at it, they also changed the fact that the Dhruva had additional things added to him, these nakshatras and everything else. They were added to that pole star in terms of how it forms the Sushumara, which is the alligator, right? It's in the form of an alligator, is how it looks today, is how our itihasas portray it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting aspects of Vedic astronomy which we use in our lives. For example, even marriage, we talk about Vashishta, Arundhati, they are twin stars. They rotate around each other. So, but, you know, which we can validate scientifically as well. But this was very useful to us. Thank you so much.
Yep. So, yeah, the uniqueness of our culture and this thing is, again, we make sure people kind of are able to easily relate. It's a lot of allegory that happens where we give, you know, we say it's a Vasishta or Arundhati, male and a female. It's easy for us to kind of recognize that, oh yeah, they can be together, they're twinnies or whatever, right? But people think, oh well, it's you just got to making it up. It's really not making it up. It's really making sure even a child can understand. And that's a profound thing that we need to kind of reground ourselves into. We personify every object. Everything that's there is not an object. It's got a life, and there's a name to it, and there's a life to it. Oh,
Thank
there
you.
was a question. There's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking, you know,
How does Shankranti, right?
Yeah, how does Sankaranti fall on 15th January every year, but other festivals change? I think that's...
Well, other festivals also, like for example, like the Meshamasam, our beginning of the new year, um, doesn't change, right? It's on the 14th of April most of the times. If you there are a few festivals that we celebrate which are based on Sauramanam. The one that we looked at right now is the Sauramanamans. The Sauramanamans are the ones that are based on the sun. Like I said, there are 364 days. They closely align with our Gregorian calendar. Not all festivals we need to know. Like I said, Ashwayuja Shukla Chaturdasi is Deepavali. Many people mistake, and that there's a little bit of a confusion that I want to kind of dispel also, that comes in with the moon. A lot of our festivals, for example, Narsimha Jayanti or Ramanavami, even Navaratri, they're all based on Chandra Manamans. Okay, so it's all moon based, it's all Tithi based. So that's the reason why it keeps shifting. It's the 354 days, and how the moon takes its the tithis that Srini Swami mentioned, right? How fast we go, how slow we go, that has a bearing on. We're going to probably get ahead of ourselves today, I guess, but it's okay. The nakshatras that we know of, that we see today, are really not based on the sun's positions or the moon position. It's really based the Earth's position. It's based on moon's position, where moon is. The Tithi and the nakshatra are both determined by where the moon is with respect to us, and that's the reason the speed with which the moon moves around us at any given point of the month is what determines what day we celebrate a certain festival. Whereas Shankranti is exactly the Earth's movement around the sun, right? And when we enter a certain Rashi, which is the Makara Rashi, it very closely matches between the 14th of January or the 15th of January. Whereas the moon is a little more complex in terms of how the gravitational pull and the other forces work for the moon. And we can definitely go into it tomorrow.
Actually, I just want to mention that Jewish and Islamic calendars are also based on the face of the moon. So that's
yep.
That also keeps changing.
A lot of the older civilizations actually followed the moon-based calendar. It was easy.
Ancient calendars,
especially. Calendars are all moon-based. But fortunately and unfortunately, we use both, and we seem to have gotten confused and want to kind of move away from both. And I think it will be great if we can get back into using both and understanding the great things both bring together. Just like the Vedas say, Chaksho Suryo Ajataha, Chandrama Manaso Jataha, the two eyes of the Lord, or sun and the moon, they're inseparable, and we should not attempt to look at it differently.
Actually, there should not be any confusion, based on though the confusion is only, I should say, is imaginary thing.
Correct. It's a little bit, people need to spend a little time to understand it.
Correct.
Yeah, ours is more sidereal, right? I mean, rather than saying it's completely solar. A solar sidereal calendar, right?
No, when you say sidereal, the sidereal means that the time of the day that we calculate is all sidereal. It's not based on the sunrise, truly speaking.
Right.
It's the movement of the moon to a particular nakshatra, or or the place where it is, where we are with respect to the moon.
Okay.
And there's a difference of 4 minutes or 5 minutes or so. It's not too huge.
Yeah, but I think somehow we reconcile it, I think, using different mechanisms.
Yep.
Like we sometimes follow sidereal calendar for some aspects, and then there are some aspects we follow. For example, Tithi and other things, we use a lunar calendar, and then we reconcile them constantly, basically. Or am I completely off?
So yeah, we reconcile them a little bit, but not completely also.
Yeah.
Sidereal is used for the time, but the Tithi
Right.
is
lunar, right?
Yeah, it's complete. It's slightly different.
Right.
We'll get to it tomorrow.
Actually, there's sorry I'm asking too many questions probably.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm absolutely with this thing.
That's the one thing, I agree with the thing that this Tithi or transition or Sankramanam or occurs at the same time around the globe. But is there a error, kind of some sort of parallax error, because the atmosphere is a little bit rarer in the northern hemisphere and a little bit denser at the equator?
Yeah, but what impact do you think that has, though?
I think that has a slight impact on the timing.
Could be, but again, we go by the time
Probably
zone.
perceptible, actually.
Yeah, if we were to have our own times, right? Like for example, if the Ohio, somebody in Cincinnati still is on the Eastern time zone, but truly speaking, they're probably about 30-40 minutes behind in their sunrises and sunsets. So it's pretty similar to that, I think.
Probably nobody asked any other question. Maybe we can wind up because we got a Paasuram, Parayanam at 12 o'clock.
Thank you so much for all the questions. Actually, we're definitely looking forward to the discussion on the moon. It's just
Certainly, I'm looking
a lot more
forward.
complex. It's a lot more complex, movement around what we have with our closest neighbor here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We can bridge, so swAmi, or we're gonna close this.
I think we will conclude for today and we'll resume tomorrow because we are about to start the 3 Pastor.